We live at a time of media propaganda where misinformation is broadcasted 24 hours. There are millions of websites, social media pages and journals that aim to spread misinformation and Islamophobia.
Now terrorism and the jihadists are again on the move. And most Muslim nations are not joining with the West to
can't admit the problem, which is Islamism. The consequence, the fight's not engaged, it wages longer, more people die. The sooner we admit the problem...
Almost all of them are trolls or bots. Very few of them have any actual intellectual content that deserves any attention. The article that I read recently blew my mind. I was mind blown at the sheer ignorance of the content. The article was titled, "Quran is Book of the Devil."
But with his plan to burn the Quran, he has found a way to get worldwide attention.
He will go forward with his plan to burn hundreds of Qurans, the holy book of more than 1 billion Muslims, on September 11th.
The moment I read it, the moment I read the article, deep down I knew that the writer had not even bothered to read the Holy Quran, let alone even open it. But my religion teaches me to have good assumptions about everyone, so let's just hope that the guy was misinformed, that he was not having any vested interests or motives of spreading hate. Let's just hope that the guy had no idea he was spreading misinformation. Even though it's hard to believe, let's just hope that, because that's what my religion teaches me to have good assumptions about people. After all, this is the age of deception, right? Maybe he was deceived by some other person. But when I read the comments, I was more astonished to see people who actually believed him. To all people who believe that the Quran is book of the devil, let me ask you some questions. Let's open the Holy Quran and start reading it, alright? Let's check what's written inside this book. Now, if you read the Holy Quran believing that it's from the devil, your mind, your brain is going to ask yourselves questions that you will not be able to answer yourselves. You'll ask yourselves, why would Satan or the devil command you to not be rude in speech in chapter 3 verse 159, to restrain anger in chapter 3 verse 134, to be good to others in chapter 4 verse 36, to not be arrogant in chapter 7 verse 13, to forgive others for their mistakes chapter 7 verse 199, to never engage in fighting as an aggressor but only in defense chapter 2 verse 190, to not insult other people's religions. Now ask yourselves, why would Satan command you to not ridicule others in chapter 49 verse 11, to be dutiful to your parents chapter 17 verse 23, to not break any promise chapter 2 verse 177, to stand out firmly for justice chapter 4 verse 135, to facilitate peace between those in conflict in chapter 49 verse 9, to not follow anyone blindly, to never follow anyone blindly in chapter 2 verse 170, to encourage feeding the poor chapter 107 verse 3, to seek out the needy and help them chapter 2 verse 273, to speak to people mildly, kindly chapter 20 verse 44, to not engage in spreading corruption chapter 2 verse 60. I could go on and on and on, because there are hundreds of thousands of verses in the Holy Quran that command good and prohibit evil. There are many more proofs that points to the fact that Quran doesn't have an evil source. If you look at the situation of the Arabian community to which the Holy Quran was revealed, it was pathetic. It was a society where killing and raping was normal. It was a society where female infanticide was considered ethical and moral. It was a society that engaged in immoral and immodest activities 24/7. Now if you compare the condition of people before and after the revelation of the Holy Quran, you see a huge difference in the social dynamic. People started caring for each other. People started to become more honest and upright. People started to respect women and value life of innocent persons. If the Holy Quran was an evil book, let me ask you, how did it transform Umar bin Khattab from a hard-hearted, violent man who killed his own daughter out of pride into a person who even cared about animal rights? How could it have transformed Malcolm X, who was the leader of a crime gang in the United States of America, to one of the most powerful revolutionaries in the American political history? If Quran was able to mold, transform a whole community from the depths of immorality, immodesty and immaturity to heights of civilization and culture, How dare you have the audacity to say that Quran is the word of the devil? Let me ask you another important question. There are over 1 billion Muslims on the planet who consider the Holy Quran to be their absolute moral code. If it actually was the word of the devil, it would have contained hundreds of verses to kill, rape and commit all kinds of immoral activities, all kinds of immoral crimes. If the Quran contained all these evil commandments, do you really think you will be alive at the moment? I mean, how disastrous would it be if 1 billion people on the planet believed in a book that preached and propagated violence? Now lastly, if Quran was indeed evil, why does most of the people, including well-learned academicians, scientists and politicians who start to study and research it, end up accepting it as the ultimate truth? They end up accepting the Holy Quran and its commandments as the absolute truth. If the Quran was evil, how would Islam be the fastest growing religion on the planet?
It's the only major religious group projected to have that increase at a faster rate.
It's quite obvious that the person who wrote the article had very little to no idea about the Holy Quran and what it contains. I gotta show you that he didn't even open the book. It's very clear that the person who wrote that article did not even read the Holy Quran, let alone even open it. It's even more scary to see people who believe in such misinformation that are combined only with an objective of spreading hate and vengeance, while we, on the other hand, try to spread love, hope, unity and brotherhood.
Every Muslim is a terrorist. Period.
Right now.
Shut your mouth.
Yes,
I don't want to hear your mouth.
Right now, what we looking at this is evil. Muslims is evil. That's what we all saying. Muslims is evil. You are. We're evil.
So dear brothers and sisters, doesn't matter what religion you're from. If you're planning to study this religion or the Holy Quran, make sure that you get information from authenticated sources. Because there are thousands of millions of organizations that work very hard day and night to spread hate and divide us. We should not allow ourselves to succumb to such propaganda. All I ask you to do is learn, unlearn and relearn. Because everything about this religion that you learned from Fox News or CNN or other fake news stations might have imprinted a whole different prejudiced and biased perspective of Islam in your mind. Do not allow yourselves to be enslaved by misinformation that brainwash you to think falsely of the whole religion and its teachings. So learn, unlearn and relearn.